The first round of the NBA's annual death game is over, and 8 teams have been eliminated. For my thoughts on the first round as a whole, check out this video. As for where you can go to find my thoughts on those eliminated 8,
where's the drive?
Right here, baby. Right here.
Baby, what do you mean, baby?
come back with me real quick to 2022. The Memphis Grizzlies had just finished a regular season campaign with a 56-26 record, good for second best in the Western Conference and second best in the entire league. Their defensive anchor, Jaren Jackson Jr., finished first team all-defense and 5th for Defensive Player of the Year. He was only 23 years old. Their sharpshooter Desmond Bane doubled his scoring output in just his second year, while finishing second in the league in three-point percentage. He was only 23 years old. They had 3 players, Brandon Clark, DeAnthony Melton, and Tyus Jones, who all finished on the 6th Man of the Year ballot. None of them were over the age of 25. And finally, to top it all off, their franchise superstar had just made his first All-Star team, finished 7th for MVP, made second team All-NBA, and won Most Improved Player of the Year, which again is definitely an award that matters. And he was only 22 years old. The Grizzlies were young, supremely talented, and more importantly, really good. And they talked a lot of along the way.
No one in the West.
Nah, I'm fine in the West.
Their future looked as bright as any team in the league. Now back to the present. The coach of that 2022 team, Taylor Jenkins, was stunningly fired with just 9 games left in the season. A last-ditch attempt by the front office to provide a spark for a Memphis team that was quickly fading down the stretch. It didn't work. After being as high as second in the Western Conference in February, the Grizzlies fell to 8th by the end of the season and had to win a do-or-die game, which they did, to escape the play-in tournament and grab the last spot in the West playoffs, where they were unceremoniously swept by the Thunder, including a 51-point beatdown in Game 1. After missing most of last year with off-the-court issues and a shoulder injury, Ja Morant was consistently in and out of the lineup all season, and much was made about the subtle change in his style of play, in an attempt to make it to April healthy. But after an ankle injury in the very first play-in game and a scary fall in Game 3, he didn't even make it to the end of the first round. And once he left, their second and third best player couldn't protect a 29-point lead, as the Thunder slowly salted away the deficit and won a game in which Memphis led for 42 out of 48 minutes. Since 2022, the Grizzlies have won a total of 2 playoff games in 3 years. A lot has changed for the Grizzlies on the court. Off the court, not so much. Look, Heat culture gets a lot of flack. Deservedly so. These uniforms were corny as hell, but at the same time, I respect them. I look at this roster and I think to myself, there's no way they should have even made the playoffs. The Jimmy Butler drama ended with him only playing 25 games for the Heat, and was a prime example of what quiet quitting looks like on a basketball court, although it really wasn't that quiet. Off the court, insults were thrown back and forth. Passive-aggressive interviews were given. Tears were shed. But through it all, here were the Heat, back in the playoffs, beating 2 teams in the play-in that arguably could be seen as having more talented rosters. They make up the difference by squeezing every single amount of value and talent from the players wearing Heat across their chests. It's not a coincidence that Davion Mitchell, playing for his 3rd team in less than a year, started playing the best basketball of his career once he got to Miami. All of it is spearheaded by, for my money, the best coach in the league in Eric Spoelstra. But the Butler saga did irreparable damage, leaving the Heat with a star and number 1 scoring option-sized hole in their roster during the middle of the season that they couldn't replace on the fly. Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero are good players, but they were miscast as the team's top 2 scoring options. And against the Cavs in the first round, the talent gap wasn't just wide, it was a canyon. So heading into this offseason, look for the Heat to be proactive in filling the star-sized hole Butler left. It's basically their MO, and the options available could potentially be franchise-altering. The foundation here is already solid. Depending on if they can acquire a star and the level of said star, it could be a quick turnaround for Miami in 2026. The Orlando Magic were the rare team where they were way more fun to watch on defense than offense. They're huge, they're physical, they don't mind mixing it up, and the best part, they don't care how you feel about it. It's really exciting to see these young teams that are led by young stars really buy into playing a physical, bruising style of basketball, where their team identity is built on the defensive end of the court. But unlike those other teams, not enough of the players around Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner, and to a certain extent themselves, can make a damn 3-point shot. They were dead last in the league in 3-point percentage and makes. The season-ending injuries to Jalen Suggs and the other Wagner brother were a big part of that. But big offseason acquisition Kentavious Caldwell-Pope had his worst 3-point shooting year in 9 years. Young guard Anthony Black regressed tremendously from deep. So did defensive stalwart Jonathan Isaac. Franz Wagner currently has a hitch in his shot. It says a lot that coach Jamal Mosley was so desperate for any semblance of space for his two stars that 33-year-old Corey Joseph was called upon to start in the first round defeat against the Boston Celtics. If you're the Magic, the need for more shooting, even if it comes at the cost of some of your defense, is apparent. Banchero and Wagner are peacocks. You gotta give them the space to fly. 14 wins. That's how many wins the Pistons had in 2024, along with 28 straight losses, a record for NBA futility. And now just 1 year later, you could say that Detroit basketball was one controversial call and a couple of clutch possessions away from the second round of the playoffs. 3 of their 4 losses were decided by a total of 6 points. Moral victories ring hollow, but these are the usual steps young teams have to take towards becoming established contenders. The same can be said for a franchise player. And listen, man, I'm all in on Cade Cunningham. In his first playoff series ever, his 3-point shot abandoned him. He was inefficient from the field. The turnovers were way too high. I do not care. Detroit's offense this season was wholly built upon Cunningham's shoulders. The amount of playmaking and shot creation for himself and others that was asked of Cunningham, possession by possession in his very first playoff series no less, was enormous. Up there with the star opposite him, SGA, Luka Doncic, and the 2-time MVP in Milwaukee. Going forward, they need another playmaker. Who knows, maybe they already have him on the roster. Asar Thompson is a top 2 athlete and already one of the best defenders in the league. Jaden Ivey was making real strides before his season-ending injury. He's not a playmaker, but center Jalen Duren is a walking double-double at just 21 years old. The core of the Pistons are young, with plenty of room to grow. The Pistons weren't supposed to be in this position this early, but now it looks like they are here to stay for the foreseeable future. I dislike the NBA rumor mill. Call me a curmudgeon, but NBA media coverage publicly calling for players to move on from their teams? I don't know. If I was a fan of the team the player is leaving, it wouldn't feel too great. But at the same time, I realize that speculation and player movement is a popular NBA topic. It puts up numbers on the boards. But for me personally, just let me know if or when the move is actually made. All the conversation up to that point is just engagement bait. That being said, skip ahead, Milwaukee fans, because what could be the biggest offseason franchise-altering move since Kawhi Leonard in 2019 has to be talked about.
I don't even know where you're sitting at.
The Bucks could have missed the playoffs this season. They could have gotten swept instead of gentlemen swept by the Indiana Pacers. Tyrese Halliburton's dad and Giannis could have gotten into a fistfight after Game 5. The Achilles injury to Damian Lillard, outside of an injury to Giannis, was the worst thing that could have happened to the Bucks this season. In 2023, Milwaukee went all in on the pairing of Lillard and Antetokounmpo. We can debate the process, if going all in on Lillard was the right move, but the result is now clear. It didn't work out. The Bucks have 3 total playoff wins and 2 first-round exits since the trade. And now their star guard, whose game is predicated on creating one-on-one space and isolation, might be 36 years old before he steps foot on a basketball court again, recovering from an injury that is notorious where it's at least 2 years before a player starts to feel like themselves again, if they can even get back to that point in the first place. But even before Lillard's Achilles injury and blood clot issues, when he and Giannis were on the court together, the Bucks were average to a little above average at best. Milwaukee were never true title contenders at any point in the season. Giannis, in my humble opinion, is still clearly the 3rd best player in the league, with an outside argument for top 2. If he decides to ask out or the Bucks organization decides to trade him, the return haul could be gigantic. Selfishly, I want Giannis to stay in Milwaukee. Again, call me an old man, but I still think that when a player stays with a team his whole career, there's something special in that. But at the same time, where is the path to being a title contender for the Milwaukee Bucks? Free agency? They have moderate cap space, but when was the last time a prominent free agent came to Milwaukee? Trades? Which players on this roster could you package in a trade for a second star? Definitely not Tony Snell reincarnate. The draft? They already emptied the war chest towards the acquisition of Lillard. They don't have their own first-round pick until 2031. 2031. Giannis will be 37 by then. And even if they did have their picks, the Bucks' draft track record since taking Giannis in 2015 is spotty at best. Part of the reason they're here in the first place. The path to a championship might still exist, but at this point it's covered in trees, moss, boulders, barbed wire, spiked traps, and sharks with frickin' laser beams attached to their heads. But at the end of the day, it's Giannis' decision to stay or go. Stay, and in all likelihood, have a Dirk-like ending to a career, hoping, with pretty poor odds, for a return to championship contention at some point. Again, I do believe there's value in that, or ask for a trade and leave for greener pastures in pursuit of a better and immediate chance at another title. And this is where the situation separates from a Durant and OKC in 2017 or an Anthony Davis and New Orleans in 2019. Giannis has already brought a championship to Milwaukee. The divorce would hurt, but the 2021 title makes it easier to digest. In sports, players are never entitled to or deserve to win a championship. But in my opinion, Giannis is a player worthy of winning multiple titles, something that just might not be feasible in Milwaukee going forward. 2025 felt like an opportunity for a fresh start for the Clippers. They moved into their new arena, along with their own likable gimmick, and were finally out of a building where they always felt secondary. Paul George left in the offseason, marking the end of another disappointing chapter for a franchise whose story is filled with them. The Clippers were now banking on their new two-star partnership of Kawhi Leonard and James Harden. And it's funny, the reservations you have with each are exact polar opposites. You can't count on Kawhi to be healthy when you need him the most, but if he's on the basketball court and feeling right, you know you have one of the best players in the NBA. On the other side, you have James Harden, one of the most durable stars we have, but when it matters the most, well, you know. And with Kawhi being healthy in the playoffs for the first time in over 5 years, and Norman Powell having a career year, moonlighting as a number 2 option when Leonard missed the first 34 games of the season. And he did a pretty good job. Ivica Zubac, an already good player, getting the James Harden with center's bump, and becoming one of the more underappreciated players in the league. 2025 was the first time in 5 years where the Clippers should have felt like they had a fair shot at making a legitimate playoff run. And yet, once again, the Clippers were bounced out in the first round. Everyone is under contract through next season. This team is built to win now. With a Kawhi and Harden-led team, you need to maximize every chance you get. With this iteration of the Clippers, time is running out to write a better story. But the book might already be out on them. Here are the ages of the top 7 players who played the most minutes for the Rockets in 2025. They finished second in a highly competitive Western Conference. They were physical, tough, and bigger than the teams they played against on most nights. Their team is full of promising young players you would gladly take a chance on. So much so that explosive scorer Cam Whitmore and number 3 overall pick last year Reed Shepherd could barely see the court. Alfred Sengun made his first All-Star team this season. It's widely thought of that Amen Thompson, alongside his brother Asar, are the 2 best athletes in the entire league. And after watching Amen chase Stephen Curry around for 7 games, I'm going to have to agree. You constantly hear the cliche, you can't ever stop a great scorer, but you at least got to make him work for it. Thompson's defense on Curry over those 7 games was the living embodiment of it. The dude has a broken 3-point shot and was still able to get by defenders sagging off of him, getting to the rim, making his presence felt on the boards, and showing an impressive level of playmaking this early in his career. Despite the early playoff exit, Rockets fans have to be thrilled from what they saw from Sengun and Thompson. And now we get to Jalen Green. Listen, I like Jalen Green. His story is far, far, far from over. But the Warriors series was rough, to say the least. After exploding for 38 points in a Game 2 victory, Green would score 48 points total over the next 5 games. And here's the problem. If you're Jalen Green, at this point in your career, if you're not scoring, what impact are you having on the game? Rebounding, playmaking, and defense were never his trademarks. I think it says a lot that during crunch time, the ball was put more in Thompson's hands than Green's. So now the Rockets have a potential problem on their hands, albeit a good one. You have all these promising young players that, again, some couldn't even get off the bench. And for those that did play in their first playoff series ever, some played well and some didn't. Option 1 is to be patient. Keep the core and give them a chance to develop together and find out what you have, hoping their immense talent is enough to figure it out. Or you can be aggressive, as you're one of the few teams in the league positioned to put together a worthwhile package for the next disgruntled superstar, while still having enough left over on the roster. If I was the Rockets, I say find out what you have. If it goes sideways, then you can always change course. But the Rockets are so young and inexperienced that no definitive conclusion about who they'll become can be attributed to them right now. We've seen over and over again these teams fall victim to the trap of mortgaging their future for a chance at now. There's definitely been times it's worked. There have been many, many other times it hasn't. And hell, if you're the Rockets, you might already have him on the roster. The Lakers were outclassed by the Minnesota Timberwolves in the first round. Their depth was non-existent. They didn't have a center. In a do-or-die Game 5 at home, they look flat, uninterested, and with no sense of urgency. Mentioning LeBron's age is basically a prerequisite at this point, and so is this annual song and dance, about him potentially retiring without notice. None of it matters. Because even with LeBron in the twilight of his career, make no mistake, time is firmly on the Lakers' side. That's what acquiring a 26-year-old Luka Doncic does for your franchise. I'll course correct if Doncic doesn't sign his extension and decides to leave LA after 2027. But even if he does leave, you still do the trade 100 times out of 100 if you're the Lakers. Because if he does sign an extension, which at this point seems more likely than not, your championship window is now open for the foreseeable future. Now, I'm not trying to make excuses, but it shouldn't have been that surprising that the Lakers were bounced out in the first round. It's easy to be blinded by the fact that LeBron James and Luka Doncic are on the same basketball team, but the fact remains. The team didn't have enough time to build up chemistry. The team was also poorly optimized for Doncic's style of play. The blueprint was established last year. Get Luka another playmaker alongside him so he's not as ball dominant. A rim running center, some shooters, and you got a chance to make the finals. The Lakers had 1.5 out of 3. And because the trade happened mid-season, they couldn't finagle a way to build an appropriate roster on the fly. Does Doncic come with his own set of problems? Of course, no player is perfect. The conditioning has already been gently brought up by coach JJ Redick. His defense wasn't just atrocious, it was downright deplorable. There are reservations here, for sure. Still, he averaged 37 and 6. All the problems I've mentioned before are fixable, and the Lakers have the luxury of tackling those problems over what could be a very long period of time. Now, how well will they actually address those problems? Only time will tell. My name is Kahai. Thanks for watching.